Welcome to Bamfordrose and a focus on DB9 upgrades. We've featured V8 Vantage, V12 Vantage and our exhaust manifold upgrades into different V12 cars before, but we've never done a specific focus on DB9 before. This particular car is from 05, so it's one of the early cars. It's got sports pack fitted to it, which is the sport pack wheels, slightly quicker ratio steering rack and a slightly stiffer undersurface trays. When DB9 came out in 04, the press really raved about the car. Transmission shifts were quick, and there was a lot of hype about Aston at that time because of the new V8 and the DB9 both coming out virtually at the same time. And in the media and in customer reviews in that 04 to 2010 period at least, DB9 could do no wrong. There were no critical comments about its styling, interior, exterior, or any of the performance features of the car, apart from DB9 Volante, which got a bit of a bad rep on Top Gear. Clarkson didn't like it too much. The factory to blame for some of that. They released the car without a rear anti-roll bar, specifically so that Volante was differentiated from the coupe. There was no real need to do that. Make every car the best you can is my view. But anyway, well, it's a slight tangent. So this particular car now, 15 years on, it is slightly long in the tooth now, and it's very common to upgrade the cars just to move them on a bit. Why would you do that? Well, this particular car, it's an 05 car, one owner. It smells in the cabin exactly the same as the day it came out the production line. It's got the factory smell of Gaydon about it. This car has. The leather is very fresh. The interior is fresh. It all looks brand new. So if you've owned this car since new, you've got some sentimental attachment to it. So I can see why people just want to upgrade the mechanics and enjoy a more modern day drive, where there are some things now 15 years later that really do make the DB9 show its age. We'll go for a drive and come on to those later. Other owners, maybe they know they're going to keep the car for a long time, and maybe the suspension wears out, so instead of fitting the same design level components, may as well upgrade. The same can be said for the brakes. And then the engine upgrades, that's something done in isolation. Obviously the exhaust isn't really a wearing item apart from the catalyst failure, which on that subject, if you click somewhere up here, you can watch a video that we've shot on that one to learn about how the catalysts fail on these cars. So let's go for a drive and we can talk about how this car drives now, some 15 years on. So we'll talk about each of the upgrades that we do in turn. And first of all, engine performance. This is a 6 litre V12. It's got 450 bhp at about 5250 RPM, and its peak torque is at 5000 RPM. That's about 570 Newton meters. Those are good figures. It's a big engine, very strong. Clarkson used to do his party piece in the DB7 with this V12 engine, pull away in third gear, and it could easily pull away in third, accelerate quite nicely at low speed, and that gear would take you all the way up to, what was it, 120, 130 mile an hour. Awesome. This V12 is no different. Lots of torque from low engine speed, but its throttle responsiveness, it's a little bit slow, and the engine doesn't punch its way to the red line. It just luxuriously wafts its way to the red line. So what we do to improve throttle responsiveness and make the engine punch to the red line in each gear is we fit our bespoke made exhaust manifolds, high flow catalysts, remap the ECU, and put a three-way switch to control the exhaust valve in either permanent loud, permanent quiet, or switching modes. that performance update really does transform the drivability of the car. Low speed, 2, 3, 4,000 RPM at half throttle tip-in, the engine's got much more urgency, and if you press on full throttle all the way up to the red line, instead of feeling a bit wheezy, like it runs out of steam at standard, and it really doesn't want to rev much past 5,500 RPM, because you can sense that the engine is running out of puff. We increased the red limit to about 7,000 RPM, and from 5 to 7,000 RPM this engine is now taking a second breath of life, really comes alive, really punches its way to the red line. So this helps the drive just feel a little bit more energetic. In turn it brings the shifts on with it. You just go through the box and the engine wants to rev and hit the red line, and it makes for a really, really nice drive, moving it on from where it was in 2005 to more modern day performance standards. With the high lift inlet cams, with the exhaust manifolds, we're taking the engine performance from about 450 to around about 530 bhp, and that really does make a difference in the performance of this car. As they say, power is nothing without control, and if you up the engine power significantly, then the brakes either have to be overpowered from standard and can accept that increased performance, or they need to be modified. The DB9 shares its discs and pads with a V8 Vantage, and the extra weight that the DB9 carries, even standard engine performance, the brakes are really on the limit. It depends how you drive the car. If you never haul the car up very quickly from high speed, you're doing some late braking, then you won't encounter brake fade due to the disc overheating, the pad grinding into the disc, the brake fluid heating up. I can brake from on the little Bamfordrose loop that we have, just braking down from one corner rapidly and in a quick retardation of speed, I can get fade in one press of the pedal. So standard DB9 brakes are on the limit. What we do to improve this situation is, first minor step would be a pad compound change. We can go to an RS29, keeping the standard discs and pads. If that didn't work, then we retrofit the V8 Vantage S steel brake setup. So that's a larger bell mounted disc, 6 piston calipers instead of 4, and that extra contact surface area with the bell mounted disc ensures that the discs never get hot, the brakes never fade, and you can really rely on the brakes to reduce the speed from high speed down to stationary, and even with a weighted DB9 you don't get fade. Next area of the car that we modify is the suspension. 04 DB9, 05 V8 Vantage, all the way up until when both cars went the glass key. So more or less any conventional key start car has got Dynamics brand of dampers on. These dampers were never great off the shelf. Typically all the cars of that era are massively over damped and undersprung, and this translates into a crashy ride low speed, yet there's lots of body roll, and then higher speed, lots of body roll again, and it never feels steady state in a bend. It never pitches into a corner with confidence. So the upgrade is the Bilstein dampers, either retrofitting later model Bilstein dampers to DB9, or we go our electronic switchable solution, which gives the best of both worlds. Obviously a fixed rate damper is compromised at one curve. With the electronic damper, We can have stiffer than you would normally set with a fixed rate damper at one end. Press the button and it goes soft, and it would be softer than you would normally set the compromise at. So it really is the best of both worlds. The sports pack setup that this car has got, the undersurface trays were thicker gauge metal, but nowhere near the gauge thickness that a 2013 DB9 is. So we retrofit front and rear undersurface trays from 2013 DB9, and that ties the chassis up quite nicely. I mean, this is the VH platform is one of the best platform that's ever been designed and created, but stitching it together with those undersurface chassis tie-in plates really does make a difference, especially then when combined with the Bilstein suspension. It really does move these cars on from the handling that they were released with the dynamics dampers. So if you take the dynamics dampers, handling traits, the engine, which it's not lazy, but 15 years on now, engines perform a lot better than this one. Throttle response a lot sharper, and the braking, which fades quite easily if lent on. Those three things in combination have earned the DB9 a bit of a pipe and slippers reputation within the Aston world. It's not quite deserved, because this car isn't pipe and slippers, far from it, but modifying just those three areas more or less brings this 05 DB9 right up to DBS level performance, chassis handling, braking characteristics. And as we all know, DBS is a phenomenal driver's car. So modifying this level DB9 is really night and day in terms of the car that you'll get at the end of the process. So those are the big fundamental upgrades that we do. There's quite a lot of small additions that we can make, which really do nudge the car along in terms of the feel to drive it. And you know, if you're going to spend quite a significant sum of money upgrading a car, then on those grander scale projects, we like to call it a rebirth. So the plastic buttons inside the dashboard, they can be upgraded to glass, just give a nice, much more luxurious feel when you touch them. Visual appearance is much better glass buttons than the plastic. Tyres always fit Michelin Pilot Sports. These Bridgestones, don't know if you can pick it up on the mic now, but there's so much road noise generated from these tyres. The Michelins run much more quieter. The sidewall is a bit more supple and you get greater comfort, yet when you turn in you get much more grip and feedback from the Michelins over the Bridgestones. You know, there's a lot of owners out there that really don't like deviating from what the factory signed the car off at, and just think, well, you know, the factory AM9 Bridgestone tyre must be the best one because it's what the factory put into production. Well, you know, at that time Aston was governed by Ford, and Bridgestone's relationship with Ford put that tyre on the car, but it was by far the best tyre for the car. So now, 15 years on, you know, tyre technology has moved on greatly. There's absolutely no reason, even cost. Michelin Pilot Sport is cheaper than a Bridgestone. That there is not one measure that you could rate the Bridgestone on as being better than the Michelin. So Michelin Pilot Sport tyres. Cosmetics, it's possible to fit the 2013 DB9 side sill to the earlier DB9. That gives them, you know, quite a nice masculine look. This car's got sports pack wheels. You could fit DBS 20-inch rims to them. We're not talking about fundamentally transforming the looks of the car, just the odd component which essentially is retrofitting Aston Martin parts. You know, it's not like putting a ghastly body kit on the car, and you wouldn't want to, because that's one of the best things about DB9. As the automotive world is going angular shapes, carbon, this DB9, as time passes, just looks more classic, more understated, and is a really nice, beautiful looking car, and you certainly wouldn't want to destroy that. And that's another reason why you'd upgrade it. I mean, DB11 has not got the same classic understated presence that DB9 has got. And now the emissions legislation has forced the automotive world to downsize and pressure charge. You can't get a naturally aspirated 6 litre anymore. So there's lots of reasons to invest in a DB9. On DB9, the same as any other car we upgrade, always recommend sticking with the factory back box. This is because the factory back box retains the valves to give you a quiet mode. Most aftermarket back boxes lose that functionality, and you just get one exhaust noise without being able to silence it. The next is the quality of the sound. Most aftermarket back boxes, in fact all of them I've ever listened to, have got some sort of aerostate with them. They go high pitched, raspy as engine speed increases, or there's some sort of vibration harshness aerostate, pressure buffeting in the cabin at a certain rev range, which is annoying, especially if you're holding it steady state on a motorway cruise. The factory back box in any of the cars, V8, DB9, any V12, obviously has been engineered to give the best quality sound in all circumstances. The best sounding back box for DB9 is a DBS. It's got a raw bass baritone crackle to it, and it doesn't go too loud, it doesn't go high pitched, and you've got the valves to send it silent. In comparison to any aftermarket exhaust system, that DBS back box beats them all. So to finish off the performance upgrade package, the same on V8. We always say to a 4.3, 4.7 V8 upgrade, need to get a Vantage S back box. It just puts the icing on the cake and makes the car sound awesome. Same with a DB9 upgrade. As we increase engine power, flow more gas through that silencer, it just makes the original DB9 silencer not sound as good a quality as it could. The noise is a bit wallowy. It's not that raw, deep bass baritone crackle of a DBS. So this car's completely standard, and we're just about to strip it to upgrade with all our components. Obviously we're going to shoot another video upgraded